Okay, this video is going to cover 7.3, the inferior and special courts. Okay, as mentioned previously, inferior doesn't mean their courts are worse. It means just less than the Supreme Court. That's all it means. Let's go ahead and get a full view on this one. So, there are two main types of inferior courts. You get the constitutional courts, district courts, court of appeals, circuit court, and international trade. But then you also have special courts, like the Court of Federal Claims, Tax Court, Territorial Courts, uh, Appeals for Armed Forces, DC, and Veterans Claims Appeals. All right, so here in this topic, I want you to focus on the structure of the federal district and courts of appeals, and then also the jurisdiction, the federal district and court of appeal. Okay. So the structure and jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is who has the power to try and hear the case. Jurisdiction is a major issue. Okay, let's look at the district courts. Nicknamed the workhouse of federal courts because that's where most of federal cases go. Inferior courts, courts created by Congress beneath the Supreme Court. So if Congress creates it, then it is considered an inferior court, and then it's a constitutional court. It's all of that. District courts are federal trial courts that handle nearly 80% of the caseload in the federal courts. That's why there's so many of them. They're created by the Judiciary Act of 1789. So they've been around as long as the country's been around. There's 94 courts with 677 judges. Cases usually are heard by one judge. All right, let's go ahead and jot some of those things in. Here. Congress beneath. To underline it and make it look nice. Control U, underline. I think you should do that too. The nicer it looks, the more you'll care about what you're writing down and think about it. And these are the federal trial courts. Most of federal cases come through the district courts. All right, let's go to the next topic. They have original jurisdiction except a few cases in Supreme Court or if it goes to the special courts. They try both criminal and civil cases. When you're talking criminal cases, you're tried for breaking a law the government considers a crime. Uh, all other cases have to do with money typically or some kind of right involved, and those are civil cases. But if it is a crime involved, then it's a criminal case, meaning someone can end up in jail, fined, or otherwise punished. Usually, actually, prison, not jail. Civil case is usually an issue over a right or money. That's the main thing with civil case. All right. And typically, it can range from small claims to big lawsuits, class action suits too. Grand juries indict. That means they bring charges forward. So you spell indict, INDICT. Petite juries, small juries, they try cases. Typically, it's 12 here in America. I think some other places it might be a little less, a little more. Some places it's like 9, some places it's 15. But here in America, typically it's 12. That's why you can also get like all kinds of strange verdicts because of that. Most of the decisions on these courts are final, but you can appeal any decision, and those appeals can go as far as the Supreme Court, or they just can move on to the Court of Appeals. Uh, I think my colleague included bonds here because I don't know. I guess because of the Balco case, there's a big case where um, Bonds and other people that went to Balco or who were using performance enhancing drugs, they used Balco to kind of cover that all up. So yeah, and I don't know if there might have been a civil suit. I don't think Bonds was never convicted of any crime though. Anyway, let's go to the next topic: courts of appeals. These are created in 1891, so about 100 years after the country was around, to take pressure off the Supreme Court and probably to a lesser degree the district courts. There's 12 federal courts of appeal districts. Usually it's a three-judge panel, um, and I think there's going to be something where you're going to see each district court. There's one Supreme Court justice assigned to each district. Um, well, yeah, they only have appellate jurisdiction with cases from lower federal courts. All right, let's write that up and really talk that through. Courts of appeals, created in 1891 to take some pressure off the Supreme Court's caseload. There's 12 federal courts of appeals districts currently. We are in the Ninth Circuit, or Ninth District, here in California. Usually it's a three-judge panel. You'll have one Supreme Court justice assigned to each district. And because the Supreme Court justices see things different, that can have an impact on your ruling. Um, you only have appellate jurisdiction with cases from lower federal courts. Don't have appellate jurisdiction from every case in the country, just from the lower federal courts, the Court of Appeals. Though state issues can be pushed up to the Supreme Court if the court so chooses. But the court's in power on that. This is what it looks like. Let's take a look at this. Let's make that bigger. All right, let's try that again. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, we're in the Ninth District. At least two judges have to be assigned, a couple, if a Supreme Court justice, because there's 9 Supreme Court justices, maybe even 4, because of DC and the Fed. As you see, there's more in the East Coast because that's where they originally designed to serve, and that's where most of the population was in the beginning of America. Now California and Texas have the biggest population, and Florida, New York have a lot too. All right, other constitutional courts. Court of International Trade. You have 9 judges there in panels of 3 hearing cases involving tariffs and trade-related issues. Tariffs are taxes on goods coming into the country, imports. If you had an appeal, it would go to the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. This was created in 1982 to speed up certain kinds of appeals in civil cases. 12 judges in panels of 3 or more. All right, let's write that up. Why they're showing a tanker barge coming in, as well as the seal of the Court of Appeals. All right, Court of International Trade. So in that one, you have 9 judges in panels of 3 that hear cases involving tariffs and trade-related issues. Tariffs are import taxes. And this is really, again, for civil cases where there's monetary damages or a right at stake. kind of want to see that visual on that seal again. Yeah, that's the seal for the Court of Appeals. Notice all the American iconography with the eagle, the flag represented, as well as the arrows. And no, what's in the other talons? I'm not sure about that. Let's go to the next one. Special courts. These are the ones created by Congress to hear certain cases involving the express powers of Congress. So they're delegated, they're implied from the listed powers. These tend to be pretty specific. So they have very narrow jurisdiction and the kind of cases they can hear. All right, let's write that up. Expressed, underline, type. Just narrow. Notice when you do it this way, you kind of have to look at it a couple times. I think that's actually a good thing. Let's write this up, then we'll talk about it. The Court of Federal Claims. Here's cases that involve claims against the U.S. So when someone's suing America, that's where we go. And America does get sued. And you get the territorial courts that spring because there's a bunch of territory the U.S. owns that are not states. Guam, Virgin Islands, amongst American Samoa. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Puerto Rico. District of Columbia courts handle cases within the nation's capital. Those are the ones in D.C. D.C. also doesn't have congressmen from that area. So you get special courts because the process is different than with states. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces is another one. That's a civilian tribunal. It's a non-military group that can review serious cases, which are court-martial decisions, which are convictions and getting dismissed from the army for dishonorable reasons. That's typically what happens when you're court-martialed. All right, let's take a look at this one. Make sure there's nothing we missed. And we'll go on to the next one. Oh, here you see intelligence soldiers tried for Abu Ghraib abuses during the Iraqi war. Kind of embarrassed by it because it was ugly. I think that covers it. So this circle, Puerto Rico. This circle, I don't know. We got Guam, American Samoa, probably. I'm not sure, but I know they're in the Pacific. Also, the U.S. Virgin Islands are in the Caribbean. All right, military commissions. It's their job to try military personnel. See this person in handcuffs and chains around the ankles. There's some more special courts too. What do we got? Military commissions. Military tribunals created by executive order. They're used to try enemy combatants. Currently, there's Al Qaeda prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claim handles cases where individuals argue Veteran Affairs has mishandled the case. This is a veteran's claim symbol. Again, notice the eagle and then justice in the beak, the scales of justice. United States Tax Courts hears civil cases involving, of course, disputes over tax laws. Let's write that one up and get you to the quiz. And then I think we'll be ready to finish and do all the readings. Veterans claims, good. And the U.S. tax courts. That's enough, I think, to have enough background to easily understand the reading. Um, so, okay, where was I? Okay, we're finishing this, and maybe I'll go over, take a look at the quiz questions, and then we'll call it a day. What is the structure of the Federal District and Court of Appeals? Um, structure of the Federal District and Court of Appeals. So, the structure is you have inferior courts that are mostly district courts that have the power to try criminal and civil cases. Court of Appeals structure, you'll have 12 federal courts of appeals and 3 judge panels with the Supreme Court justice. All right, that was a lot, so let's go ahead and I'll type this one out for you. Structure, I would answer each part of this separate. It's going to make it easier. Federal district courts, there is 94 courts. That here whose power comes from a 1789 Act of Congress. Go ahead and do the jurisdiction too. The jurisdiction of the federal district courts allows them to hear and try criminal, federal, criminal, and civil cases. That answers half of it for both. This is why I'm helping you more. It's a little confusing that you need to answer both parts. So the structure of the courts of appeals has 12 different courts with 3 judge panels with 1 Supreme Court justice. All right, let's double check that. Okay, you have 12 federal courts of appeals, 3 judge panels. Okay, then the next part is jurisdiction. Okay, they only have appellate jurisdiction with cases from lower federal courts. Okay. The jurisdiction of the Court of Appeals only appellate jurisdiction from lower federal courts. All right, that should wrap up this slideshow. I know I told you I wasn't going to type them up in front of you, but because that one had 2 strands, I think I'm going to make it 20 points per question this time. So we're going to go from 130 just on the last one, because really it's 4 questions disguised as 2. I want to give you commensurate value, equal value, sorry. My lawyer words start coming out when I start talking law stuff. I can't help it. Training. All right, that's it. Let's end the slideshow. Hopefully this was helpful for your understanding.